Trans-for-Garrison Pass, a road that some elderly men on Top Gear said was the best driver's road in the world. However, we're not sure it's even the best road in Romania. This road looks absolutely amazing. It looks like a Scalextric track that's just been laid over the landscape. It's got red and white barriers, it's got hairpins to die for. It's unbelievable. We started out that morning down by Pitești where we'd stayed the night before, and start with it wasn't sort of particularly going to drive through all the villages, but we eventually picked the road up, and it's one long road that leads up towards the Trans-for-Garrison. And you suddenly enter this bit it's kind of like an amazing sort of gorge with rocks seem to rise up all around you with all the trees and everything, and just way up high you can see these little concrete bridges which are pretty fragile, and they look like they're just for people to walk across, and then you'll just see a truck lumbering across it and you think we're going to drive across that. And we got to the dam where the Top Gear guys slept underneath it, and they woke up in the morning and oh look, here's a dam, like they didn't know. And we got there, and we were obviously just ahead of all the tourist traffic because it was completely deserted, and just this amazing view down this huge dam. And then literally probably 5 minutes after, just as we were starting to get all the cameras out, just people descended on this place, and it was busy as anything. We then carried on up sort of next to the lake and then up into the mountains, and it was just incredible, the road on that side of the mountain. It was laid over the landscape in this just beautiful way, and you'd get these wonderful sort of hairpins hanging in the middle of nowhere and these amazing views looking back down the valley. And to me that was just so beautiful and really quite different to what was found on the other side of the tunnel when we went through. If I'm honest, we've been here all day, and it's one of the most frustrating bits of road I've ever been to because there's so much traffic. People are absolutely everywhere, so driving quickly is nigh on impossible really, because you either catch somebody slow very quickly or you've got somebody wandering around in the middle of the road taking photographs. So, great driver's road when it's empty.
Don't get me wrong, the Trans-for-Garrison is spectacular. The manner in which it bullies its way up the mountain is a wonder to behold. It's just that, well, I prefer the look and feel of the wilder southern side that we drove to get there. I also think that the Trans-for-Garrison has become something of a victim of its own success. It might have been busy before, but certainly since Top Gear proclaimed and publicised it as the greatest driving road in the world, it seems to have become chock-a-block with people crawling all over it, eager to gawp and marvel. When we were there, even the shepherds were tweeting about how busy it was.
We waited until pretty much the end of the day when the sun was already down behind the mountains, but sort of not completely set obviously, and headed down the road, and with nobody around it was a brilliant road to drive. And it just keeps going and going. It sends about 2,000 metres down to the plain, so it's an awfully long way to get down there, and it goes down through the trees, so you don't have the view of the road looking spectacular, but it just sort of, you imagine what's higher up and exposed on the mountain but then lower down amongst the trees, and that just keeps going and going and going and going. And by the time we got down to the bottom, it was just this wonderful view behind us of all the Carpathian mountains sort of blue and sort of marching into the depths of the night sky, and it just looked amazing. As we came back to the villages as well, there were more stray dogs around. One tried to eat me as we parked up to do a sunset shot, which I wasn't very amused about, but Sam and Dean seemed to think was absolutely hilarious. And Dean was very excited by the fact that a man appeared in the doorway, apparently to all intents and purposes cuddling a goat. There were bison or possibly buffalo, we're not quite sure. You say tomato, I say tomato, I say tomato. And they were wandering around in the middle of the road. And yeah, it was just bizarre to suddenly come back to the sort of, it's not civilization to some extent, because although it's an EU country, it just felt amazingly ramshackle. Once we got down to the plain, it was actually a really nice sort of mellow drive back. It was a beautiful evening. We had the roof down, We chased a train at one point, which we won, so that was good. V8 F-Type beats train. And then had to fill up with a bit of fuel, because obviously the fuel light had been blinking for flipping ages, to be honest. But after that, we headed to the city of Sibiu, where we were staying for the night, and got some rest, ready for the next day. We're back on bumpy Romanian roads this morning, and we're heading a long way south to a road that we're hoping is going to be better than the Transfigurășan Pass.
After tackling more insane roundabouts where everybody knew where they wanted to go but didn't realise that it was impossible for them all to go there at exactly the same time, we found our way out of Sibiu and drove west before heading south back towards the mountains.
I haven't really talked a great deal about the V8S F-Type that we've got with us. It's got 488 brake horsepower, 461 pounds-foot of torque.
These figures are ample enough to propel it from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4.3 seconds, and then on to 186 miles an hour. Suspension is double wishbones all round with a 20-inch wheel at each corner, and the F-Type has the fastest steering rack ever fitted to a Jaguar. As a driving proposition, it lacks some of the alert crispness of the lighter and less powerful V6S, but for a long road trip, the greater torque and that wonderful wooffle from the V8 make it a beguiling companion.
As it's the top of the range, it's obviously fully spec'd up, but to be honest, I think whichever F-Type you buy, it still feels like a really special place to be in here. The range of cars out here is, well, it's quite broad, I think it's fair to say. You've got everything from a horse and cart all the way up to, well, the F-Type, which everyone seems to love. Even when I was driving it quickly yesterday, people were still giving it a thumbs up and smiling, and just everyone's taking photographs of it. There are a lot of Dacias out here as well, perhaps understandably. The coolest ones are the really old ones that look a bit like Chinese rip-offs of 80s Saabs, all slammed at the front as well, which is quite cool, or at least look like they are. A bit like the day before, the journey to get to the bit of road that we were aiming for was pretty spectacular in itself. There were a couple of dams and there was an amazing lake, and it was a really good road to drive as well. But the weather was rubbish. It was raining like anything when we set off. And although I'd read that this bit of road had been resurfaced in 2012, clearly there was some sort of asterisk with that, because it should have said sort of partially resurfaced, only 90% finished, possibly 80% finished. And eventually we just ended up driving through effectively a quarry. And although I've thought about sort of rally crossing an awful lot of stuff, an F-Type probably wouldn't be up there. It was quite good fun actually. On the smoother bits you could let loose and it was pretty good, but we didn't want to get a puncture. So anyway, I suppose, like they say, the darkest hour is just before the dawn, and literally just after this kind of complete quarry off-road section with abandoned cars, we arrived on this pristine tarmac, and it almost looked a bit like the Nürburgring, but with better tarmac going through the pine forests, and it was clearly just been finished, and it was absolutely incredible. As we started climbing up through the hairpins, still amazing, beautiful tarmac up through the hairpins, and it just got better and better. As we climbed higher, the weather came out, we could put the roof down, and you could tell we were getting close to what we were aiming for. And then as we got up to the ridgeline, this view just materialised in front of us, and suddenly the whole trip, as if it hadn't been before, was worthwhile. This is the Transalpina Pass, and it is absolutely stunning.
This is the road that Nicolae Ceausescu wanted to surpass when he built the Transfigurășan. Originally it was a Roman route through the mountains, but in the 1930s the Transalpina in its current form was laid down by King Carol II, and today the road is still known as the King's Road. The Germans refurbished it for military reasons in the Second World War, but after that it fell into disrepair and was neglected for over 60 years, so that it was just a rough dirt track. Then, in 2009, the Romanian government began laying asphalt on it for the very first time, and they supposedly completed that task at the end of 2012. As the Transalpina tops out at an altitude of 2,145 metres, it became the highest road in Romania, a title it took away from, yep, you guessed it, the Transfiguration.
There's an amazing roof of the world feeling to this bit of road. The surface is just immaculate. Another reason I think it's better than the Transfiguration Pass. And it just seems to go on and on and on. Never ending corners. Some of them really nice and quick as well, which is great. Not just hairpins to have fun sliding around. As you can probably tell, we've had a fair bit of rain today. But if anything, it's made the V8S F-Type shine all the more brightly. It's a really fun car to slide around. The diff has been a little bit frustrating occasionally because it doesn't seem to lock up on some of the hairpins, but this V8 it's just absolutely brilliant. The gearbox has been amazing as well. It's got the 8-speed ZF Auto in it, braking for animals. And it works really, really well. The other nice thing about the F-Type on roads this tight is you can squeeze past other traffic where a supercar might feel just a little bit unwieldy. I always think if you're going to come somewhere that's got the magnitude and magnificence of somewhere like this, then the one thing you need is a soundtrack to match. The V8 F-Type has certainly got that. Jeremy, James, Richard, I'm sorry, this is the best driving road in Romania. Don't get me wrong, the Transfiguration is absolutely amazing, but there's just something about the exposure, the wildness, the sheer scale of the Transalpina that makes it even more breathtaking. It really is a road that, once seen, is never forgotten. As to whether it's the best driving road in the world, well, just have to keep looking, won't we?